Looking back on Doug Henning now, it probably looks a bit kitsch. It's like watching, if you're a member of the audience on Top of the Pops and you look back now, you thought you were cool and you look at the outfit and you go, oh dear. But at the time he was cool. He was wearing T-shirt and jeans, which is like for a magician unheard of.
I have never seen a live performer more comfortable on stage than Doug. And audiences picked up on that. And they were just happy to be with him.
Down through the ages, there have been a number of figures who changed the public's perception of what the magician should be. No one had heard of Doug Henning when he opened in the Magic Show, and the Magic Show ended up, at least for a while, being the 9th longest running musical in Broadway history.
Doug's thesis was very simple. Magic plus theater equals art. He received a grant from the Canada Council for the Arts to study magic as a performance art. And they had never given a grant to a magician before. And he wanted to study magic with one of the great behind-the-scenes innovators of magic of the 20th century, Dai Vernon, another Canadian who was then resident at the Magic Castle in Los Angeles. Dai Vernon, in his 70s, he would think would be old school, would have nothing in common with this flower child, and yet you see this man who's in his 70s who has an eye for talent and what magic is all about to say, no, he's the future. He's the future.
Do you mind if I keep my cigar in my mouth?
No.
You want to link them, in other words, you want to bring one ring the full length of the chain. You see, you do that by a simple series of moves like that. Now you can also put it on very slowly, like that.
That's beautiful. Do you find going slowly down the chain?
Well, it depends. That's another. You try it both ways. Try and hit the ideal speed, see?
Vernon helped popularize the concept that the magician's technique must be concealed within the natural mannerisms that they would use every day.
Try to avoid superfluous moves. Take them out. And whenever you do anything, the more you can take out, and you end up with something beautiful. The great Leonardo da Vinci said that details make for perfection, but perfection is no detail.
In 1999, our magazine did a year-long series searching for the 100 magicians who influenced magic in the last 100 years. And not so surprisingly, Harry Houdini was voted number 1. Surprisingly, Dai Vernon, a man that laymen would have never heard of, came in number 2. And over the course of 3 generations, Dai Vernon influenced the art of magic through his teachings of psychology of motivation and his insistence that magic be natural, That was groundbreaking.
This is an old Egyptian trick. Now, I'm going to do this very slowly. Usually people think it relies on quickness of the hand, but I do it with the wand, you see. All I do is a little stroke like that, and you see the ball seems to disintegrate. Now, most people think this is a swindle. They think I don't actually have the ball in the hand, but the ball is actually there. It's all in the power of the magic wand. When I spin it like that, that sends the ball back to the
In the early part of the century, which I suppose is when Vernon was starting, in order to make a ball disappear or something, you'd go through this terribly formal rigmarole of sort of, here I have a ball, and you transfer it from one hand to the other and point at the hand that it's in, and suddenly it would disappear. And of course it would work. But suddenly for Vernon to say, well, we don't need to do that. We can use the same techniques and the same principles, but we can actually do it in the course of being natural.
I'm going to do this very slowly this time, very slowly. One under each cup. And I say jump, and you see, they all congregate.
The cups and balls is about the issue of existence. That's what it is. You know, when you can't see something, is it there? You know, it's the tree that falls in the forest. Does anybody hear it? Does it make any noise? That's it. Babies, peekaboo. Is there someone there? Yes, there is. That's as primal as you get.
You cover that one, and cover the center one to make sure they're covered. I'm going to explain how this is done. But I'm going to simplify it so you can understand it. I'll put one of these back in my pocket, and I'll put this one back in my pocket. So if I put these two away, that leaves one under the center cup, doesn't it? There's one there. But you see, this one has returned again. Now, the reason for that is this. You were probably watching the wrong hand. When I told you I'd put it in my pocket, I have nothing here. I keep the ball here. I only pretend to put it in my pocket. Now I bring it down with my little finger, and I tilt the cup and put it underneath the cup. But if I actually put it in my pocket, how many are there under the center cup? You haven't been watching. There's three there. Don't be afraid to get it. Now, look, there's three. See, if I put all three away, now how many under the center cup?
Probably 20.
No, there's only one. And there's one here, and there's one here.
I feel called to be a magician. And I also feel that I didn't pick the tricks in my repertoire. They picked me. And when my students ask me, how do I find a repertoire? My answer is, just let the tricks call you.
1, 2, 3, 1.
Marvin Roy, Mr. Electric. I saw him on the Ed Sullivan Show when I was just a boy. He could fill a stage with his presence. He was encouraging. He was saying, magic is a great life. You might not make $1 million, but you'll live like a millionaire. You'll have the greatest of friends. You'll live an exciting life. You have to work hard, be original, but there's a wonderful pot of gold at the end of that rainbow.
I don't think there is such a thing as a great magician. I think they're a great performers. And I'm in love with J. Marshall.
Thank you, that's heartwarming. I'm one of America's better, cheaper acts.
That amused me when I heard other people use the line, because you could only do it when you're working at the London Palladium or those kind of places.
I tie a knot in the white silk handkerchief, say hocus pocus, the knot unties itself. Hocus pocus. Oh, come on.
Jay had style, he had class. He has an understanding about what's right and what's wrong about standing on a stage.
Thought it healed up on me.
Watching old school magicians a lot of the time, the reason they were very good is because they did it day in, day out. They kind of, they did the music hall shows where they, 6 or 8 shows a day, some of them. And so they got very, very polished, and I've got a great respect for that kind of thing. But I also kind of like the idea that you've set up something that is only going to happen once, and that's it. Or you've done it in a really strange situation. I mean, the current sort of things, the things that David Blaine's doing in the States, it's almost like a hit-and-run style of magic. It's, a very light form of terrorism.
Hey. Here's what I want you to see. Look. Here's the reason you don't eat chickens. Here, ready? Look. here. No, but look, watch. Ready? Look. Look, no, here. Look, you should see this. He took it. Look what he did. He did this. He put the head, twisted it right back on, and the chicken was back to life. For real. For real. Look.
The greatest performers have always been able to make audience members not only suspend their disbelief, but suspend their inquisitive nature to find out how it was done until after they have absorbed the entire performance. Because they are so caught up in the magic, so caught up in the mystery, that they're not thinking, how did you do that? They're in another land.
You know, Santa Claus has a lot of whiskers. And he doesn't sleep much at night on account of his whiskers. He doesn't know whether to put the whiskers underneath the blanket or over the blanket. Now, should he put his whiskers under the blanket, which tickled him? Should he put his whiskers over the blanket, almost chokes him. And you lift his whiskers up someday, and you'll find he hasn't got a necktie on. You know why? He gave it to me one night while he was asleep. I took it. Here it is, and I tear it in two. It gives me 2 parts. Again tearing this part in 2. And here's where I fooled you. Causing one to link within the other. Now figure that out.
People have to like you. People have to, admire your character before you become a great anything, let alone magician.
I'm going to show you just how to do it. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. First, rip it. Then, tear it. Get to the breaking point. That's where they link together. But to disconnect them, one circle of cloth. Did I say one? My mistake. There's 2. Were you watching?
So they have to make people happy and enjoy and laugh. Laughter is one of the prime ingredients of magic, as far as I'm concerned. If you laugh, then actually that helps the magic, because while you're laughing, your tension is a little bit broken, and you can get away with things.
Houdini did a very ordinary act initially. Then a producer said, why don't you act the part of a gentleman who is slightly tipsy, and when you reach out in the air and produce cards, you don't produce them with the magical attitude, hey, look how clever I am. I've produced a fan of cards out of the air because I read the instructions, you haven't, so I'm very clever, you're a twit. And that, which I think is the worst possible way to present magic.
It was a play, and all these magical things were happening to him. So you had this marriage of great theater and great sleight of hand, and perhaps the greatest sleight of hand artist of our century.
When Houdini became established in the 1930s, the quality of his act and the success he had with it was so strong that suddenly that was the model of the magician. And that stayed that way for 20-odd years, until Channing Pollock came along. He really did command the forces of nature. I mean, this guy would walk out and he was he was perfect. I mean, he was matinee idol handsome. He was tall. He was just impeccable. And he would just do magic.
He was the archetypal performer. He was elegant. What he did was slow and smooth and mysterious. But what I particularly liked about it was the fact that clearly what he was doing, it was his own skill that was doing it. When you see him just doing things with his hands very slowly, you know that that is purely, it's his work that's doing that. There's nothing else. And just that point at which he just takes 4 cards and they just vanish one at a time, and it's just done so slowly. And it's amazing because you're fooled by it. You know he's almost sort of playing with you. It's almost a little game. And when he produces them one at a time, when that last card comes into view, it's so slow, it's really almost cheeky. He's almost sort of saying, there it is, I fooled you all along. And it's done in such a good-natured style. There's not a sense of arrogance about it at all. It literally is just him sort of doing his act, and you're just watching it and appreciating it for what it is. And I just thought he had everything. He would have been a success at whatever he'd done, but it just all came together in the magic act.
Spoon jar jar spoon, spoon jar jar. Spoon jar, spoon jar jar, spoon spoon. Pull it, pull it.
I just love Tommy Cooper. I love his approach to magic. Immediately he walks on the stage, you know, you just got this real sense of excitement and you just wanted to laugh straight away.
Rose, Rose, I've risen.
He made magic very accessible to people because he didn't have that sort of one-upmanship.
Empty! 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 Oh, it's dark in there.
You can use comedy with magic in 2 different ways. You can be a funny person doing magic tricks wrong or badly or hilariously, as epitomised by Tommy Cooper, who's the great buffoon.
A solid one! Will vanish in front of your very eyes.
Quite extraordinary. But magicians in this country have tended to use comedy in a different way. Comedy magicians in this country have tended to be very skillful, very good magicians, doing wonderful tricks, but selling them with jokes, with comedy, with one-liners.
All those who've seen the trick where you take 5 and you throw away 2 and you still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, say aye. Aye. All those who haven't seen the trick where you throw away 2 and you still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, say aye. Aye. All those who couldn't care less will throw away 2 and still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, say aye. I can almost tell whether it's going to be a good night or a bad night. Good night. So, what's the use of me standing there with these 5, throwing away 2 and still having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And what would be good is to take the 5 and throw away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and be left with 1, 2, rather than throw away 1, 2 and be left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dollars.
That's funny, but there's lots of young guys today who are very good, they're very talented, and some of them are very good magicians, but they trivialize the magic. It's really not important. It's like it doesn't matter, and they don't care too much, as long as they get their laugh. But for my money, David Nixon was probably the best stand-up talking act we've ever had, because the tricks were important.
Try it on the kids during the summer holidays. If you haven't got any kids, it's too late for the summer holidays, but it's a good trick. Now, you know the idea. You cut the rope and you make 2 pieces, and then you knot them together like this, and you pull the knot tight, and then you take the scissors and you trim the knot like this. I expect you've seen it done many times. And then you take the 2 pieces of rope with the knot in the middle, you run your hand down, and they're all joined up again.
David Nixon was a charming, personable, delightful person to have on your screen, first and foremost. He could have done anything, you know. David Nixon said, pass the mustard, and everybody was interested. He was just entertaining.
You don't have to have conjurer's rope. You can have a bit of string or a bit of wool, a bit of wire. Oh, a bit of wire, anything. Look, I'll show you how to do it with this. Can I have a little bit more? That's lovely. Thanks. Now, look, all you do, what you do first of all, you take the wire like this, or the string, or whatever it is, and you take your scissors. Now, there's only one tricky move. After you've cut it, now, this is a little bit more difficult, but... And then, of course, it's all joined up again.
He had this enormous skill of not apparently taking the magic seriously. It was a mild little diversion. It was a way of passing a few minutes, and he wasn't doing anything particularly world-shattering. And because he was like that, he was that much more entertaining. He would have someone take a card, but it was him that we were watching. We weren't watching the card. We were interested in his relationship with us and in his relationship with the person who was helping him.
Sir, will you look inside the envelope and make sure it's empty? Now, if you put the card in the envelope for me, Mr. Hunter, and stick it in there without letting me see it, and if you don't mind, oh, he's ahead of me. If you'll stick the flat down, I don't like the taste myself. It's horrible, isn't it? I'm very, very sorry, but these are second-hand, you see. They're the only ones. And just to make sure, sir, would you sign your initials over the... I've got a pen here if you haven't got one, just so that you'll know. You press the thing down and it usually sticks. Sometimes it pops up halfway, so that you'll recognize this again, you see.
Everyone thinks it's camera tricks, so you have to persuade them that you're bona fide, that you're not going to deceive them in that way. You're going to deceive them in another way.
Do you have a cigarette on you?
I think so.
I'd be very... I don't want that one back, no. Oh, thank you very much. This is very good. You weren't saving them for Christmas or anything. Oh, these are turkeys. Oh, no, you've been sitting on them. Oh.
He united technical expertise with an enormous charm and an extraordinary ability to draw you in.
Don't think me rude, sir. I'm going to take your cigarette here. Nothing else in my hands. I'm going to tear it down the paper like this, and I'm going to pull the cigarette, the paper from the cigarette. There's something inside here. Looks a little like a card. It is a card. It's a playing card. It's the 3 of down. Was that the card you told? 3 of down?
That was the card.
That's
yeah.
fortunate, isn't it? It was a 3 of down. Well,
he could have sold you anything.
now, it really is your signature on the flap, sir. This is very important.
Identical, yes.
Mr. Hunter's signature on the flap. Will you open it before I touch it? Just open the envelope. Look inside. Make sure that the card has completely disappeared from inside the envelope. Now, I think you can see what's happened, sir. Could I show the others? That leaves you in the envelope just with the tobacco from your cigarette.
His ability as a performer, forget the magic. He was an all-round entertainer, and one of the greatest, I would say.
And he sang, and he was very good at singing parodies written by George Martin. I remember one where we accompanied the opera singer June Bronhill in a parody with opera bits in it, and that was great fun. He enjoyed doing that.
Do you remember that Carmen trick I showed you once?
Carmen? Oh, yes. You took an ordinary opera hat and made some magical passes just like that.
And when I tried to throw the hat away, it kept on coming back like that. Hooray!
There is a huge charisma, and his personality is enough. He is prepared to make room on a stage for other people to look great. And again, in entertainment, how rarely do we see that, where a performer will make space within the space that they have to let other people look wonderful. And if the laugh is on anybody, it's on him.
I'll show you how to tear some paper dolls to call your own. You fold it once and tear along the line. That's one for me and one for you.
Now, David, tell me what to do.
Just copy me.
Like this.
You're doing fine. They're bound to turn out right.
I'm concentrating.
Oh, they'll be the cutest dolls in all the world.
I'm gonna have some paper dolls that I can call my own.
I'd rather have a line of real live girls.
Kind of like your nice uncle who came round at Christmas. Whereas Paul Daniels brought up on a different circuit. He was doing the hard northern working men's clubs where you had to be fast and sharp and aggressive. And so he'd kind of honed that act for, 15, 20 years. And so he was on tip-top form, and he just happened to be in the right place at the right time, had a couple of TV exposures when David Nixon unfortunately departed this world. So he was in a good position that way.
Paul Daniels' television debut absolutely blew me away.
You like this? Not a lot, but you like it.
He did some fancy shuffles. He vanished a £5 note. It appeared somewhere else. And he did a trick with a ball and a little cup.
You've got to guess whether it's on the top, the bottom, or whether it's in my hand. If it's in my hand, it can't be under the cup at the same time as it's in my hand, because then if it was in my hands and under the cup and I put it into my pocket, you would note it wasn't under the cup at the same time as it was in my pocket, because then it wasn't under the cup. Take it out from under the cup, drop it into the cup, and throw it down, put it down there. You've got to get it from there to under there. Are you following that?
He could act. He could joke. He could take the piss out of people.
What's your name? Pat. Don't ever wear a sweater with your name on the front. Now, this is what we'll do.
He could do all those things that we were waiting for magicians to do. And he did it, and it was wonderful.
Now, all you've got to do is take a little paper ball, you roll it up, and you go 1, 2, 3. Now, see? Funny, isn't it? Hold the back of that chair with 2 hands. One. Safe. Pardon?
Are you sure it's safe?
Oh, positive now. Yes, yes. You hold that there, that there. Then you see that bit there cannot get at that bit round there. Face the audience and sit on your chair. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Did I say sit down to you? You were told to hold the back with 2 hands. Now I'm going to fluff this out into a great big paper ball. If a little paper ball has lifted you that far, when I go like that 3 times, don't forget, give a big blow. That's all you've got to do is give a big blow down here. And the ball will disappear completely. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Fantastic. Are you with friends tonight?
Yes.
That's good. I want you now, nice round of applause, I want you to go back your friends. Off you go.
There was another great thing that Daniels did with chimpanzees. There was a box on the table that Daniels kept showing this chimpanzee and saying, an empty box.
So what have you found?
It looked like the chimpanzee was trying to ruin the trick. There's something in the box. And, the viewer at home, you think, chimpanzees got poor Daniels this time round.
What was the chimpanzee so fascinated with when he looked into the box and tried to find something? Normally on this show we do not give away our deadly secrets, ladies and gentlemen, but in truth, as all the magicians' tricks are supposed to be done, this one was done with mirrors.
I believe magic is not necessarily about tricks. I mean, look at David Blaine today.
Will you hold your hand up for me, officer? Look, this
American streetwise magician who has woken up to the fact that the audience is important.
Look, this fly you just killed. Watch and concentrate. I'm going to begin to speak to the fly right now, and there's no I want you to really focus here on this fly moving. Let's hold it right here. Look, it looks like it's moving, but that's just obviously the shaking of his hand. But look, there we go. Here we go.
The power that man generated was because, for the first time, somebody is making room for the audience. And somebody is allowing that audience reaction to really be seen as it is.
Look, you see it? Starting to go, I see.
Oh! How'd you do that one? Oh, guys, that's your magic. There's a spot.
This is for you.
Oh, you son of a gun.
Here's a guy with no smoke, no mirrors, no glitz on the street. He looks cool, superb tricks, and I think that's a good way forward for magic.
David Blaine, of course, is in the tradition of earlier magical greats like the great Max Malini, who is one of the legendary figures of magic, who used to do amazing things like going into a bar, lift somebody's hat, and under it would be a huge cake of ice.
He would go to any lengths. He'd get a playing card and he'd hide it in the street and scrunch it all up and put it face down in the street. And the next day he'd take a friend out and they'd be walking along and he'd be saying, "Oh, I can guess any playing card just from the back." And then they'd say, "Oh, look, there's one there." And he'd say, "Oh, yes, that's the 10 of diamonds." And it would be the one that he planted the day before.
One of the famous quotes from him was where he'd borrow an antique table at whatever particular stately home he was performing in and do his card stab routine where the chosen card, he'd whack down this knife while he was blindfolded and find the chosen card. And, if any, the woman of the house sort of said, "But that's my priceless Queen Anne table." He said, "Yes, but you can tell everyone that those marks were made by Max Malini." Which is great, that's it's just the front of the guy, As I say, I've always had kind of admiration for people who just kind of bluff the way through life. You can imagine him as kind of like a magical Del Boy of another era, really.
If somebody asked me a cigarette, what I would do?
What?
I'd just break in a half and I'd give them a piece each.
Very nice.
Because if they don't like, I put it back again. This way, watch. One inside of the other.
Sleight was the one that did it for me. I spent 4 days with him, 4 days intensive tuition. He says to me, "You've got to believe that what you're doing is real magic." I said to him, "Well, how can you believe if you know how it's done?" He says, in his wisdom, he says, "When you drive a car, do you think about changing gears?" I said, "No, I just do it. It happens." He said, "That's it. When you do your magic, it happens. You don't think about your technique. You just think about being a magician and giving that feeling to the audience."
You see the cigarette here?
Mm-hmm.
Watch. I'm going to tear them right in the center. Right here, look. Here. Okay?
Okay.
I show them the side too, look. Okay?
Okay.
I'm going to tear them right in the center, and you can see 2 pieces.
Yeah?
I can't do any better. Watch now. Now I'm going to restart the cigarette. Look. Now, this has got to be done, look. Look. Watch it. Oh, and here's the cigarette.
The greatest performers have always allowed the scene in which they perform determine the nature of the performance. Be it from Tony Sleight to Alexander Herman, who would be in a marketplace and pick up an egg and say, "How much for this egg?" Crack it open and remove a coin. He let the scene frame the performance.
And I'm not sure anybody does it better than René Levin.
René Levin takes subjects like life, death, fear, love, and he shuffles these all together into his art. He even refers to God shuffling us all.
Jamás lo entenderé. 52 cards, shuffle, and cut. Oh, in English. Okay. No se puede mezclar más. ¿Ok? Haré mi esfuerzo en inglés. En English. 3 of heart, 4 of club, 5 of diamond, jack of heart, 10 of heart, king of heart, queen of heart, 7 of spades, 6 of diamond, ace of diamond, 7 of diamond, 7 of heart, 6 of heart, ace of heart. Thank you. King of spades, 10 of spades, 2 of spades, 9 of spades, queen of diamond, 8 of club, 8 of spades, 2 of club, 9 of club, king of club, 4 of heart, 5 of club, 4 of spades, 5 of spades. Shove, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Al English. Shove, shove. Me da igual, exactamente igual. A veces pienso que hay una razón poderosa por la cual yo adivino las cartas. Y es que las cartas son adivinables, se pueden adivinar. Segunda, tercera, cuarta, quinta.
Fourth.
Fourth. Jack of spades. Primera, segunda, tercera y cuarta. Sería increíble, porque shuffle you, no shuffle I, shuffle you. Y sin embargo es.
If you were to engage René Levin, you wouldn't know until the show was over that he only had one arm. You might think that although one arm was in his pocket, you might think that was simply an affectation or him showing that he could do this only with his left hand. No, René Levin is maybe the greatest living close-up magician of our time. And not simply because he's doing it all with his left hand. It's because he's doing magic that has heart and soul.
Un chino en el siglo IV después de Cristo, el chino Lipo, gran poeta, dicen que jugaba con 3 migas mientras recitaba sus finos poemas. Debía ser algo parecido, nada nuevo bajo el sol. Me gustaría recordar la poesía. Sí, decía: tomo una botella de vino y me voy a beberla entre las flores. Siempre somos 3, contando a mi sombra y a mi amiga la luna. Cuando canto, la luna me escucha. Cuando bailo, mi sombra también baila. Terminada la fiesta, los invitados deben de partir. Yo desconozco esa tristeza. Cuando marcho hacia mi casa, siempre somos 3. Me acompaña la luna y me sigue mi sombra. Pero me gustaría repetirles la poesía, porque quizás no la escucharon por descubrir el juego. Terminada la fiesta, los invitados deben de partir. Yo desconozco esa tristeza. Cuando marcho hacia mi casa, siempre somos 3. Me acompaña la luna y me sigue mi sombra. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry.
Señor Ricciardi,
Yes?
por favor, quiero ver el público otra vez.
All right, 1 second.
Sí, por favor.
She says she wants to see you once more.
Sí, por favor, una vez más.
Once more. Okay, Sandra.
Sí, está
Wait.
aquí.
There you are.
I saw Ricciardi at the Felt Forum in Madison Square Garden. Electrifying, an electrifying performer. Perhaps Ricciardi was the great illusionist of the 20th century.
I used to say that you could take Ricciardi and put him at one end of an airplane hangar, and at the other end of the airplane hangar you could put the largest, most spectacular Las Vegas show with all of its production values, and over at the other end you'd have Ricciardi with 2 or 3 assistants and these banged up props and a relatively small set of equipment, and that if you threw an audience into the middle of this airplane hangar and came back half an hour later, they'd all be down at Ricciardi's end. Ricciardi's style was a dancer's style. It was flamenco. It was bullfighting.
The masculine family developed the greatest levitation, and one of the things that made it so great was they were the first to pass a solid hoop around the body suspended in the air. Now today we take this for granted, but when it was first created it was a startling revelation and piece of magic for the audience. Imagine you're reading the newspaper in 1902 and you read the headline that your competitor has just made someone float. And you, to be competitive in the marketplace, now have to figure out how to make someone float, or you've lost all your market share because people will go see the person who can make the person float. I mean, that is a milestone, a watershed mark in the evolution of magic.
John Melville Maskelyne was quite clearly the father of English magic. He was the first real entrepreneur, perhaps, in magic, because he saw the chance to entertain the public, not just with magic, but with plate spinning, with the most amazing automata. So he became an all-round entertainer.
So Maskelyne was able to establish this permanent home of mystery. And I think as a magician, you didn't really make it until you played Egyptian Hall. That was the benchmark. And obviously his greatest find was David Devant, who again changed the face of magic by incorporating that sense of mystery with wonder, with a love for the audience. And to me, great performers have a love that they share, that enthusiasm that transcends the footlights. So when you think of Devant's comment, all done by kindness, that says it all.
And if there were more magicians following that banner today, all done by kindness, the status of magic would be much higher in the world.
I spoke to many people who saw Devant. Going back a long time, in the 50s, there was still a lot of people around then who'd seen Devant performing in the 20s and 30s and before. But everyone, no matter who else they had seen, always said Devant was the greatest. There was no argument about it.
There are certain Devant pieces that still resonate with magicians today. One is the boy and girl with the eggs.
Dylan, look in there. What do you see? Nothing. That's because it's empty. Nothing in the hat. If I reach up in the air and grab a little piece of dust, it's invisible until I put it in the hat. Then it develops just like film, turns into a nice fresh egg. Dylan, hold on to that. That's your job.
And he kept on doing this. It was a literally cornucopia of eggs, and the boy could no longer hold them all. And yet, even though It was this incredibly comic situation. It was all done with love and affection.
Good eye-hand coordination. Right on top, doing fine. Oh, these kids are good. Lean back a little, there you go. Faster. Faster, there you go. Faster. Yeah. Okay, good job. Drop them in the basket. Give them a hand, folks.
Where the Boy, Girl, and Eggs was based purely on creating a comic situation, the artist's dream was based in Devant's vision of beauty and the mysterious. And it had a much more balletic quality, which also hallmarks a great performer, that they have different types of material that can alter the pacing and flow and rhythm and look and feel and texture of the show to give a complete magical experience.
Newspaper said of David Devant, the greatest magician of all times. And indeed, he may well still be, or have been, the greatest magician of all times. And I think the Magic Circle was extremely fortunate to have such a name as its very distinguished first president.
Maskelyne and Devant would have been household names in the way that Paul Daniels and David Copperfield today are. And in actual fact, Noel Coward, in his play Blithe Spirit, has a line in which one of the characters comments on the Maskelyne and Devant goings-on, actually referring to the poltergeist activity created by one of the spirits.
David Devant was one of the pioneers of cinema and the pioneers of showing films and also taking films. He was very quick in seeing that cinema was something that was really going to work and take off. And he was responsible for persuading his partner, John Neville Maskelyne, to have one of the first cinema projectors, which Maskelyne said would only last about 2 or 3 weeks, but then they were still showing films in the Egyptian Hall and St George's Hall about 25 years later. So I think it's thanks to David Devant that we now have a record of some of the great early vaudeville magicians.
Salabim, Sembe, Sembu, Salabim.
Now, gentlemen, I'm going to deceive you. I'll show you this hand and also this one. I will turn the bag inside out. You put your hand in the bag yourself. See if you can find this thing. Anything there? No. I'll turn it back again. You look very suspicious. What's wrong? Would you like to examine? Go ahead. Put your hand inside anywhere you like. Nothing there? You see, when I won't think, I'll do the same as you. Right in front of you, place my hand inside, and all was fine. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for coming up.
Perhaps the greatest treasure in the world of magic today is a repertory theater company actually several families in the Boston suburb of Beverly, Massachusetts. This may be the last time anyone in the United States or perhaps elsewhere gets to see a recreation of the classic golden year period of magic. And it's attributable to the love and devotion of Cesario Pelez, the real genius behind this.
The amazing thing about this show is this, that you watch the show all the way through, you listen to the wonderful music, you see the wonderful settings, the wonderful theatre, the way it's decorated, everything about it. And when you come out, you don't think about the tricks, you don't think about the scenery, all you do is come out very happy. I only wish you could see it with me.
It's hard to adequately describe the significance of this in the history of magic. Cesario Pelez has actually recreated in the Legrand David show what he remembers as a young boy in Cuba, seeing David Bamberg, who performed an Oriental stage show under the name of Fu Manchu. Beautiful stage settings, the costumes, and the Oriental motif of illusion shows going back past the turn of the century.
La princesita es una ilusión.
The first real magic show I ever saw was Horace Goldin at the Balham Hippodrome in southwest London. The theatre no longer exists, but I remember it very well because it had a revolving tower at the top where coloured lights beamed out rather like a lighthouse. And of course I shall always remember that probably as long as I live. He didn't speak at all, but he did a lot of tricks one after the other, including unwinding a huge turban, cutting it in half, pulling it apart, and it was restored. It was grand illusion. It was done in a very sedate and very calm and graceful manner, even though in himself he was a big man, because he was a big chap.
What was great about a lot of the old school illusionists, watching archive film of them, is how non-PC a lot of it was. You know, like Horace Goldin, for example, he gets a canary, wraps it in a piece of paper, and he used to load it in a kind of fake gun and fire it at a light bulb. The canary would appear in the light bulb, and to release it, he'd just smash the light bulb. You sort of picture this poor canary going, what have I done to deserve that? You know, can I not just have a job testing gas down the mines or something, you know?
Goldin was the first to actually saw a woman in half and separate the halves. It was an incredible publicist, and he would have ambulances standing by outside the theatre with signs saying, "In case the saw slips."
The first magician to appear on television in a serious way in America was Mark Wilson. Now, you couldn't saw a girl in two on a children's show, of course, because of the complaints from the parents. So he came up with a wonderful version of this thing where he would use a train. We made a model of a train, kind of in the style of the sawing. However, what do you do when you have to actually use a saw? Well, we just used little divider pieces that seemed to work out very well. And then Mark would pull the coal car and the engine apart, and lo and behold, she had been divided in two, just like the sewing.
Horace Golding took it a step further. He called it the buzzsaw illusion. And this was indeed quite horrific.
You see the teeth, you hear the sound, you hear the scream of the woman when the saw blade goes through, that the audience is given all the colors to paint the picture in their imagination. It's one of the greatest tricks of all time.
And the young lady.
Franz Kafka put it that the meaning of life is that it stops. And I think this is really what drives a great deal of art and philosophy, is this whole issue of we're mortal. I think that's obviously what one of the main things that separates us from other species, is that we get this idea that there's an end point, or at least a transformation point, we don't quite know. So magic talks about this a great deal, and a lot of magic has to do with the idea of transcending death.
Gentlemen from the left.
If you go and watch a good movie, that movie's going to hook you in. You're there, you're amongst the action. And I think a good performer, and Hans Moretti is amongst the best, he can hook you in, he can just make you feel the butterflies in your stomach. It's superb. He does the most phenomenal sword box routine. He doesn't want some fancy box. It's just a cardboard box you might get from any of the big furniture companies. It's a cardboard box that a person could fit in, but there's only just enough room for him. It's not his assistant who will then stick the swords through. He'll get members of the audience up to stick swords through the box in anywhere where they want. You know, this is just stick the swords through. And you're thinking, how can he not be harmed? Anyway, so the swords come out of the box, and there's like a lot of swords that go into this box, and you can see the holes, and you've seen all around it, and you can see underneath it. It could be anywhere. It could be in the middle of the street. And the swords come out, and then up pops Hans Moretti, perfectly fine, perfectly alive, but completely changed. I think this needs to be a certain mentality attached to doing that sort of dangerous stunt. And believe you me, these are dangerous stunts. These are not things that you read in a magic book and can do the next day. They are really dangerous. He is our master showman. He knows just how far to take that audience. And just when you think you're going to fly off those rails, he'll just bring you back to reality. I think Moretti could well be a modern-day Houdini.
Houdini, you realise, became famous in one or both of two ways. One was by word of mouth, and the other was newspapers. That's all there was then. There must have been something to the man other than the fact that he could get out. And I was trying to work out what it was, and another great magician, but not a professional, a film director named Cy Enfield. He's the man that made Michael Caine a star in Zulu. He said, the golden rule is look within yourself, see what you have inside, and put out on display that which you feel is most likely to be accepted by the audience. He says, that's what I do with my actors. This, I feel, is the way Houdini must have worked. He made the audience feel for him. And in that way, there was a closeness. He drew them to him.
this little short guy, and nothing could hold him. Chains could not hold him. And he became a symbol for everybody in the world in chains. He was so powerful in that symbol that he was able to challenge people to try to bind him. And that made it even stronger, that nothing could hold him.
In Chicago, he was challenged by the police to escape from a police cell, naked. Well, of course, naked in those days was a very suggestive word, but he did take all his clothes off and they locked him in a cell. Not only did he escape from the cell, he unlocked the cell doors of all the other prisoners, switched all the prisoners around in the various cells, put on his own clothes, and met the governor of the prison outside the gate of the main prison. And no one knew he'd ever got out until he met them there.
Harry Houdini, when he was in his prime, he was extremely athletic. And there's a definite link between him and a modern act called the Pendragons. Now, the Pendragons have taken athleticism in magic to new heights without compromising the artistic integrity of their act. Take, for example, their version of an old Houdini effect called the Metamorphosis. Houdini used to boast that he could make the transformation in 3 seconds, but Jonathan and Charlotte have cut that time to under half a second. It's unbelievable.
Project the name of a president of the United States. I ask you now to make your minds a blank and concentrate to receive what I am sending.
Mentalism is not the same as the rest of magic.
Ready?
When you bring up the issue, is it possible to read someone else's mind? Or is it possible to know the future? Or is it possible to know something that cannot be known? Now we're not necessarily entering impossible territory. We're entering improbable territory.
Look directly into my eyes. Try to get the name that I am projecting to you now.
Dunninger would seal the thought that he was trying to transmit in an envelope and then entrust this envelope to a bank official.
The projection is over.
The bank official would then come back on the show the following week, open it up, and show that the majority of the viewers had indeed picked up on the thought that Dunninger was transmitting.
Dunninger was such a strong personality that he really convinced a great many people that he was genuine. He never said he was genuine. He significantly never said he could read minds. He said he could read thoughts. And of course that's very different because thoughts are in many forms. So he never really said he was a psychic, but he was a very big star.
At the time that Dunninger was making a real impact in America, an Australian couple were a phenomenal success here.
Off on a mystery trip from Filton Airfield, Bristol, goes a Stratocruiser. Its passenger of honour, Leslie Piddington, the female half of the husband and wife team who each week baffle 20 million radio listeners. This is to be their most exacting test yet. The object? To transmit a train of thoughts to Mrs. Piddington 20,000 feet up from a studio in Piccadilly.
Radio was the big medium in those days, and the Piddingtons were essential listening. We couldn't believe what they were doing, and of course the magicians were very interested as well to think what they were doing, how they were doing it, because some of the things were totally baffling. as baffling to the magicians as they were to the general public.
Here is Jean Gordon, a stewardess. What did you do to Mrs. Piddington a few minutes ago?
I searched her very thoroughly in spite of the cold. I made her take off everything. I looked in the padding of her jackets. I looked in her boots. I even looked in her mouth and her hair. And now I have her handbag, so I think you can be sure she's nothing hidden away anywhere on her person.
What they were doing had never been done before on that scale. There'd always been two-person mind-reading telepathy acts, but they were completely unique.
I asked all of you in the studio here to write something down or to draw a picture or provide something to be used later in this program. I also asked you to insert those, whatever they may be, in numbered envelopes which were issued to you as you arrived in the studio this evening.
The subject to be transmitted is chosen at random, and Piddington first hears of it from one of the judges. Can he transmit it to his wife?
A bird. One bird. Someone talking. Someone saying hello. A spirit. I can't make sense out of it. Oh, it's two lines. A bird, spirit. Hello. Oh, I've got it. I can guess it. Hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert. I think that's very nice. In fact, whoever thought of it? Hail to thee.
Hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert.
Thank you. It was amazing, but no sooner had they travelled back to Australia than everyone was talking about a man called Chan Canasta. Now, Chan Canasta had a new branch of magic. He called it psychomagic.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the panel. Welcome to the show.
He would say to you, I'm going to make you choose a certain card. I have a skill for making you choose a certain card. You will think that your choice is free, but it is not. You will choose the card I will you to take. And he really could make people pick cards that he wanted them to pick. Now, to the public, this is fascinating. This isn't a trick. This is command over someone's mind.
I shall ask you now to select, let's say, 3 cards together from the pack. 3 together from anywhere you wish. Would you please do so? Yes. Take your time and take all the effort to take anywhere you wish, any 3 cards that you wish. Have you? Oh, 4, doesn't matter. Take 4 if you wish. 3. Would you please look at them? Select 1 card out of the 3. Would you please take it out of the 3 or put all the 3 away? Let's say you've selected in your mind. Put them behind you somewhere so nobody can see.
His work was so difficult because it involves a psychological balancing act that is, if you actually know what he's doing, it's hair-raising.
If you have at any moment a suspicion that I know the card that you're thinking of, by all means change it. You have 3 cards there. I don't care what card you take, just 1 in your mind. Ready? From all these different cards, I shall select 4 and place them like this before you. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little nearer to you. There are 4 cards on the table before you. An impossible choice. Would you please take one, whichever one you wish, or point to one. Yes, point to it. Hold it. Now, would you be surprised to know that the card that you're pointing to is none other than the card that she thinks of?
I wouldn't be at all surprised.
I would. Believe me, I would. Because at this very moment, she can still change her mind if she wishes. What is your card?
Jack of spades.
Fine. Please open Jack of what?
Spades.
Spades. Open this that you've touched.
Jack of spades.
Put it down. And Jack of spades. Thank you very much indeed. Jack of spades it was. Why didn't you change your mind at the last minute?
I almost did, yes, but then I thought, no, I won't.
You see? There you are.
Among other things, he understood the power of failure. When he did his show, things didn't always come out the way he wanted. And that brought power to the things that did come out the way he wanted.
On the Michael Parkinson show, he asked Parkinson to just think of a page in a book.
Please select one in your mind, the number of a page. Or shall I do it again if you didn't see one?
No, I saw it.
You've got one? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And then to name a line, and then to name a number of words on that line. And you're virtually on the edge of your seat. How could Chan Canasta possibly know these words?
And now I'm supposed to do the 3rd and the 6th word on the 6th line on your page without knowing your page, which is impossible, is it?
I would have
Actually,
said so.
It's ridiculous.
I would have said so, yes.
Unless we are in collusion of some sort. But then let me think. The third word I know, the sixth word I don't know. The third word on the sixth line is the word shop. And the reason I don't know the sixth word is because I only have 3 words on the line, oddly enough. The words are to the shop, full stop. To the shop. And these are the contents of the sixth line on a page in this book that no one knows, neither do I. I really don't.
Only I know.
Only you do.
Certainly.
What is your page?
106.
106. So let's open the book on 106. But let me ask you a question. Did you for a brief second not think, because it's very important you say it, did you not think of any other page?
I thought of page 142, briefly.
Because I thought, I hadn't been here where I failed, because I thought of page 80.
No.
So open page 80 first of all. And shall show you why we go wrong. See, I can go wrong.
Page 80?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line down.
Should we write
to the
here?
shop.
To the shop, right?
Yes.
But you chose page
106.
Magicians know there is a major error that has taken place. But without batting an eye, he resolves it, and he uses all of his skills for management to create a miracle.
But you chose page
106.
And I can reconstruct still page 106, the contents of sixth line, although I failed here as you see, and I think it would be, the third one would be the word who. I think it's a man who had spent, somebody who had spent his time, or his timing. Something to the effect would be the sixth line on page 106.
106. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Man who spent his time selling Manchester cloth to the Africans.
Time will go.
I don't know what the audience thinks, but I don't think that was a failure at all. I think it was absolutely remarkable.
One of Canaster's major rivals was a gentleman called Maurice Fogel, who never really broke into television like Canaster did, but he was a major headliner in the 40s and 50s in the variety theatres.
Fogel picked up on the danger element, so he tried to combine sort of mind reading with something dangerous, and he could overcome the problem by the power of his mind.
I feel it is my duty to declare publicly that I personally accept all liability and full responsibility for my performance of Russian roulette. This is a gamble for life.
He used 6 rifles, all loaded with 1 bullet, and one of them was fired at a plate on the wall and smashed it to prove it was real. That 1 empty rifle was mixed up on a stand with 5 other rifles, so no one knew which one was the empty one. All 6 of them picked the rifles, but one of them would have an empty rifle, but no one knew which one was the empty rifle.
The camera come forward, pick it up please. There is my prediction. Tonight's lucky number will be number 6.
And he was the one that was chosen to fire the bullet at Morris's forehead there. The others fired at the plates.
On your mark!
It was frightening. It really was.
Get set! Fire!
Many people have psychic experiences, and so they're able to relate to this thing that they're seeing on stage. Premonitions, take a very simple example. The telephone rings and you have a premonition that it's going to be someone that isn't someone that calls you regularly. And then you pick up the phone and it is that person.
When I think of Uri Geller and his spoon bending today, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief because I still believe in the mysterious, that it's possible that these things may happen.
What I'm doing, I'm holding it very, very gently. And I'm giving it a little... It's bending very, very gently.
In case viewers don't know, this end here is me. And I'm just holding this very, very loosely.
It's cracking. I feel it under my fingers. The thing is cracked here. I wish, can the camera focus it?
Yes, it is.
See how gently it goes? It's like plastic. Can I hold it for a second?
Yes.
It's cracking.
Is it going to explode in our faces?
No, it's look, it's like it's becoming like plastic. It's breaking. It's breaking.
There's a crack.
You can look. It's very.
Uri Geller might be one of the great magicians of our century. Good for him. You know, I've often thought that aside from government workers, magicians are the worst secret keepers on the planet. Well, good for Uri Geller. He hasn't told anything yet. I have great respect for him.
As most people know, Geller really does steer clear of the world of magic and magicians. But there is one magician that Geller really respects, David Berglas. You can't categorise David, but the one thing you can definitely say is that everything he does defies explanation. For example, he can stop his own pulse. This man is superhuman. This man is the James Bond of magic.
As you can see, they're now not quite in sync, are they? Huh?
No.
What happened?
Well, it stopped.
It stopped. Is that possible medically?
Well, medically speaking, no.
I should think not.
It's not going.
I'm stopping this one.
Stopped?
What would you say normally at this moment?
That is not possible.
I know that. They're normally dead, aren't they?
Yes, you shouldn't be talking.
My father's done many dangerous things over the years. One of the things that excited me as a child was hearing that he went to St. Moritz. He was always a bit of a keen sportsman himself, and there was something there called the Cresta Run, and it's a sort of one-man toboggan, which is incredibly dangerous, and he was the first person, probably the only person, who did it blindfolded. His motto is nothing is impossible, and he thinks of the most unusual thing and finds a way to do it.
Manipulation with cigarettes, but underwater? And the cigarettes were lit? This was bizarre.
He uses techniques which you can't just learn. It's something from within. It's a mixture of techniques, whether it be a mixture of magic, psychology, hypnosis perhaps, and human nature. That he puts them all together and he takes risks. And he's also got a great sense of humour.
All right, you don't need to hold hands here. You can do that later. Look at the cross, inside the circle. At no time, let go, and don't press down. Are you ready? Try and lift it. Stand up now and lift the table. Say you can, and you can. Yes, you can. Bring it up a little higher. Fine. And stop. Now, just to prove to yourselves that your fingers are not really stuck to the table, will you please wiggle your fingers like that? Wiggle your fingers. Move them, all of you. Come on, move. Wiggle them. Keep looking at the cross inside the circle. Stop.
Whether it's his voice or the way he commands them, and not only rises from the ground, but it'll actually move, it'll dance to the music, it'll follow where he goes, and it is real magic.
Come on, you can. Keep looking at the cross inside the circle and stop. Now, you won't believe this, but the table loves music, so could I have a little table music, please? And we'll try and get it to dance. Now, this is beautiful music. If you listen to it carefully, you'll get an urge in your fingertips, and your fingertips will start dancing. So start dancing, table. Move. Come on, sway. A little faster. A little faster. Listen to the music. Let your fingers do the dancing. Keep looking at the cross inside the circle. A little faster. 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 Stop that now and start spinning. Spin. Come on, you can do it. Keep looking at the cross inside the circle all the time. Don't take your eyes off. Cross inside the circle, faster. Stop and reverse. Get down again, get down quickly. Look at the cross inside the circle, up again again. One more time, quickly, very quickly. And reverse the other way now, faster. Faster, 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 faster. Come on, faster. Tables up. That's it. All right. Fantastic. Thank you very much. If you'd like to leave, thank you very much. And thank you very much. All right?
Day, I was travelling in a tube train, and I saw a little man trying to read his newspaper. I want you to imagine that this is the little man sitting in the train, but it is empty, that more and more people start coming in, making his reading quite impossible. Now please just imagine these people coming in left, right, and in front.
Robert Harbin, when you see him do the torn restored newspaper, such a great performance because he has set up the motivation for his work.
The first book I ever wrote in 1946, I put favourite magician Robert Harbin. I never saw any reason to change that. He was a South African, and Harbin thought, ate, smoked, drank magic from start to finish.
And so he read his news. But the amazing part was the way in which he opened it out in the ordinary way.
He was probably the most modest man I've ever seen in my life. He never realized that he was revered by magicians to the extent that he was.
Now, you and I are going to perform an amazing feat. Don't confuse this with anything you've ever seen before. Now, remove this chair completely, just you and I now. Christine, I'm as nervous as you are, so don't worry. Now, I put my wrist under your ankles like that. Just you and I. I'm going to take the board away. This is unique in the world. Now, Christine, take your hands away, so step aside. Christine, your head is heavy. Your hands are heavy, your feet become light. Lift them off my wrist. And I want you to stay there, Christine. Stay there. Stay there. Stay there. Stay there. Drop your feet, it's all over.
Harbin developed a whole new way of doing cabaret and TV shows by inventing tricks which wheeled on and wheeled off and were complete in themselves and yet had the same effects as those big illusions of the 19th century. He invented what must have been the most remembered trick of the whole of the last century. That one where the lady's stomach goes to the side.
Tell me against the front, please, Carol. Yes? You sure? Right. And put your hands through there, will you, Carol? That's the idea. Now put your hands through there and your face.
Robert Harbin invented that, you know, in his garage at home.
If we push this like this, we can't do it any further because her hand is in the way. So put your hand in, will you, please? Now, if we push further, we can't go any further because her body is in the way. You'd see that. Now, would you hold your thumb there? That's it. Now, you're in charge. Right. Now, to make it possible to move her from there to there, we have to do this. It's a Rolf Harris noise. Now, do you see it coming out the back, that saw? Yes? It did. All right. Now, this is the one that hurts me far more than it hurts you. Tell me if it comes out of the back, will you? Through. Now, I want you to push, and I am going to pull. Right, a big heave. And there. Feel a hand, please. Feel a tummy. Foot. Face. Come around this side. Come around here. Feel a hand. Yeah. Now look, touch your tummy. Breathe in. Hold it. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Good girl. Satisfied? Thank you very much. Will you go back to your seat? Thank you very, very much indeed. Well, now, Carol has a nasty gap in her economy, so let's put her right. She'll need 3 dressing rooms now.
When audiences saw Robert Harbin perform the zigzag on a television show from the London Palladium, that's all they could talk about for the next couple of weeks.
Give me a hand, come right forward.
None of us had ever seen anything like that. And that, I believe, was the start of modern illusions.
Robert Harbin's influence has been enormous. He has influenced other magicians since to take his principles and create great illusion shows again, of a kind that haven't been seen for 100 years. And in America, there's this huge boom now in big tricks done by big magicians on big stages.
There is so much magic in the city of Las Vegas alone. It boggles the mind.
Oh, good boy.
The Lance Burton, charming, relaxed, laid back,
Kids, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to send you back in time 2 weeks, because 2 weeks ago, you were not in Las Vegas. 2 weeks ago, you were back home in Kentucky. I have the control box here. I switch it on. Yes, the power is working. I set the controls for 2 weeks. Extend the antenna. Aim it up at the box. Keep your fingers crossed, folks. I have to get Stinky off my sofa. Here we go.
And within a few blocks, we have the high-energy superstar Siegfried and Roy Spectacular. It's now been playing for 10 years to sell out audiences. That's 1,500 people per show, twice a night, year in, year out.
Siegfried and Roy show is great. The first time I saw it at the Mirage, I felt that if that show had ended after the first 25 minutes, I would have gotten my money's worth.
It is the most lavish, the most spectacular, phenomenal show on the face of the planet. You have to remember, these are two performers who met on a cruise ship. It was Siegfried doing the magic act, and Roy was working with the cruise line. They teamed up, and they have an image. It's very clean-cut, flamboyant creatures in their shows. There's certainly a whole mystique.
I think there's danger. I think the Siegfried and Roy show, in a way, undercuts the traditional lion tamer. Because the lion tamer goes into this cage with a gun and a chair and a whip, and these are wild animals, and they're ferocious, and they want to kill him. And now we see Siegfried and Roy, and these tigers don't seem to want to kill them. Although, on the one hand, they are wild beasts. On the other hand, they seem to be capable of having a rather interesting relationship with these two guys. They are friends.
It almost transcends being a magic show. It's taking its audience into a dream.
A great magician needs to have a theatrical sense, but the most important thing a magician needs to be is an actor, and to have a really strong rhythm. For me, Fred Capps is the epitome of the magician who can act and the magician who's got rhythm. And that, to me, is what made him the great all-rounder that he was.
We'll show you these cards. You don't have to remember. It's very easy. They're low, red, diamond, and heart cards. I'll show you them. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 is 5 ordinary red playing cards. Now, from these 5 cards, I go... Excuse me? 5, yes. I'm terribly sorry. They must have gotten in between in the dressing room. There's so much going on. It doesn't matter really. So we do the trick with only 4 cards. It's exactly the same, so don't worry. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 ordinary red cards. Now, from these 4 red cards, I'm going to take in my right hand, that's this one. Of course, the right hand is, of course, always the hand with the thumb on the left side. Now, in this hand, I'm going to take 1, 2, 3 of these cards and only 1 in the other hand. Now, the trick is that I'm going to vanish that card and without you seeing it, making the card from my left hand
He looks as if he genuinely isn't quite sure whether the trick's gone right or wrong.
Just a moment, please. 1, 2. I will try to do this trick with 3 cards tonight. Well, you won't miss anything. Just the other 2. Now, of course, from these 3 cards, of course, you can only take 2 in my right hand and 1 in the left hand. Now, I'm going... What? No, I just put that 1 away. So 2 here and 1 here. Oh, no. I'm terribly sorry that this happens tonight. It's the first time I do this thing. It's a beautiful trick. When it works. Well, anyway, we've got 2 cards left. It's the 3 of hearts and the 5 of hearts. Yes. Oh, that's better. The 3 of hearts and the 5 of hearts. Now, I want you to work. Now. Yes? It's right now. Now, most of the time I think it will be wrong again, you see. So we have the 3 here, and we've had... Oh, no. I don't think I can show you this trick tonight. It really is a beautiful trick, but you need 5 cards and only got 1 left, and but 1 card that doesn't work. Because it's red on this side and black on the other side.
Fred Capps was an absolute master of pure sleight of hand. And watching him, I had a barometer for excellence. What transcended his technique was his charm. Because there I realized if you just gave the audience your blinding technical sleight of hand and nothing else, isn't that showing off? Isn't it an exercise in you being a little egotistical? Which is why I liked him a lot, because he sort of blurred the edges between his brilliance and his humanity as a performer.
You know what this is?
It's a cork.
Right. But this is not an ordinary cork. Watch very carefully. You'll see the cork move. Watch very carefully now. See? That's what I meant. Look, very carefully. I won't do anything. And you'll see it move. Did you see that? Mm-hmm. It's not the muscles of the hand at all. Look. Wow. Huh?
Extraordinary.
You like it?
I do.
You can keep it.
I can keep it.
We're living in a world now where we're bombarded and surrounded by technology, which is impressive, it's mind-boggling. But where's the wonder? The wonder comes from the magician.
There are certain great pieces of stage magic that resonate amongst the arts as a whole, like a great piece of literature or a great musical work. Modern example, Harry Blackstone performing The Floating Light Bulb. I think when you're sitting in that theater and you see the bulb float about the stage, it's wonderful. But then when that bulb on command floats mysteriously over the heads of the audience, that is just not a great moment in magic. To me, it's a great moment in theater.
Oh, you'd like to see it as well. All right, if you want to see it, look, but do not touch.
All right? Then you may see it as well. Voilà.
Somewhere in our subconscious, there's a desire to believe in a magician. Just read about Merlin. Funny enough, Merlin started as an old man and regressed back to a little boy because he lived backwards. Now, that's a very magical story.
I think the modern Merlin is not really a performer at all. It's a fictional character, Harry Potter. And I can't help but think, would Harry Potter exist today if it wasn't for the most famous magician in the world, David Copperfield?
And you realize how complicated his show is and how effortless, personally, not only makes it feel, but his entire crew. That alone is astounding. But the fact that they will pack it up and take it to a new theater tomorrow night and achieve that perfection again, 500 shows a year, that is truly magic.
David Copperfield is a modern master of capturing the public's imagination. He first did this when he made a Learjet disappear.
This shot won't cut away. You'll see it as if you were there, with absolutely no camera tricks.
Many people talk about the vanishing of the Learjet or the Statue of Liberty. To me, this is pure Houdini, magic to make people talk. But a lot of Copperfield's work can be very, very beautiful. His idols were Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly. He was mad about dancing. And he is one of the few magicians who has successfully joined the magic of magic and the theatre of theatre together.
This is not just levitation, this is him flying all over the stage with no visible means of support. And he'll prove to you that there can't be any visible means of support because they build a box around him. There's no way that anything can get to him. When I first saw Flying, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. It was such an emotional piece. You believe that he could fly.
It's very balletic, but more importantly, when he has a woman from the audience in his arms, and he floats in the air with her. The expression on that woman's face defines what magic is about.
It's a universal dream flying. And that's one of the reasons why magic has survived from the beginning of time, precisely because the magician provides people with something they need and want. Images, ideas, symbols, dreams. And that's the power of magic.
Do something to me, something that simply mystifies me. Tell me, why should it be you have the power to hypnotize me? Let me live beneath your spell. Do that voodoo that you do so well.
No way!
For you do something to me that nobody else can do. That nobody else
Still warm. All done by kindness.